As your child gets older and moves from preschooler into a more child age range, then your child would naturally move from wanting to try to read picture books to reading chapter books independently. Some kids are kind of hesitant to move into the chapter book phase. They want to just stay with the picture books. Those are comfortable. Those are not so big. There are not so many words on the page usually, and it feels a lot less intimidating. You can sit down and read a picture book in a much shorter length of time than it takes to read a chapter book, even a short chapter book. So how do you convince your child who's hesitant to read a chapter book to do it? How do you get them there? What you do is you start them on a book series that will hook them in and engage them. A series is a really great way to go because there's more than one book. And so they read one and they're like, oh, that was interesting. I want to find out more. I want to learn more about these characters. And I call these gateway chapter books because it's the gateway into reading chapter books. So you want to find a really good gateway chapter book to get your child hooked on reading chapter books. But before we dive further in, hello, my name is Valerie. I blog at babywisemom.com, and I've been blogging there since the year 2007. I have 4 children who currently range in age from 12 to 19 years old. I love helping parents, love parenting, and make all of your parenting life much easier. So a little bit of background with reading books and me. I've always loved to read. And one of my really big parenting goals was that my children would all be readers. I just really believe that if you are comfortable reading, then it just opens so much to you. You can learn anything you want to learn. It makes school much easier, and it's also fun. There's so much fun that comes from reading. I have a degree in English. My college degree is English, and so obviously, I love reading. It's a big passion of mine, and I'm happy to say that all 4 of my children absolutely love to read and are great readers. So my second child, when she got to that age where you move from reading picture books to chapter books, she loved picture books, and she's very linguistically gifted. That has held true throughout school. She is just very good at English stuff, but she did not want to read chapter books for whatever reason. She's 5, so I don't know that she even could really articulate why, but she just was very hesitant. And so we really had to focus in on okay, we've got to get her hooked, and we did. My 4th child was the same way. She also was very hesitant to move from the picture book into the chapter book era, but she also did, and all is well. So if you have a hesitant child, don't despair. It doesn't mean they're going to hate reading. My kids who were hesitant are great readers, avid readers, and very, they're gifted linguistically. And so it wasn't an indication of oh, that's just not their thing. It just wasn't their thing yet. So on my blog, babywisemom.com, I have a post with a long list of really good gateway chapter books to read that has the list of the book plus a summary of that series. And so in a gateway chapter book, when you're trying to get them hooked on reading chapter books, you really want to go for a series initially, because that helps them get over whatever their issues are with the reading of the book. So if it's wow, that seems really scary to have to read a picture book. It seems really scary to have to read a chapter book instead of a picture book. That seems long. Whatever it is, if there's not enough pictures, whatever it is, it kind of helps them see, oh, that was actually really interesting. And then because it's a series, they want to read the next book and the next book and the next book. So you really want to start when you're trying to hook them on chapter books and convince them chapter books are awesome. You really want to start with the series. So there's a ton of amazing standalone books for young readers. But for this purpose, we're trying to like get them hooked on it. So it's something that the series just draws you in. And it's also, it can be easier to read a series because, you know, every time you start a new book, you have to get to know the characters. You have to get to know the author's writing style. And you have to like figure out like what this world is. And when you're reading a series, like by book 2, like you know the characters, you know the world, you know the writing style. You already have this picture in your mind of all of the characters and the location. It just kind of helps you like, it's easier to move on. And you will find once they like get through one series or like even just a couple of books in a series, they're more willing to read like any chapter book, but the series are always fun. So I'm not going to go through every single book that's in that blog post in this video just because they would take a really long time, and the blog post already exists. And if you're interested in the details of each series, you can read it. If you just want to like get a list of books and just don't need to read about it but want the list, you can also get it there. But I will share those towards the end of this video too, but I will point out a couple of the books individually now. One of the very best gateway chapter book series is the Magic Tree House series. So this is book 2, but there are like, I don't even know how many books there are. There's like at least 50. And so if your child gets into the Magic Tree House series, they have a lot of material to go for. So you can see like these are thin books, and like here we have, the writing is large. You've got some pictures every once in a while, and they're adventure. Like there's adventure going on, a lot of imagination. They're exciting and interesting. So these are really great. All of my kids enjoyed these. Some enjoyed them more than others, but like all of them, this was like one of the best first series we ever did for all 4 of my children. And they all 4 have different, like in the end have settled on like different favorite genres to read. So this is just like a good all around, appeals to like basically everyone. When you're starting your child on you're trying to get them hooked, you want to start by reading aloud. So you'll take book 1 and you will read aloud, just like you would have with your picture books, like before bedtime or whatever time of day is your time of day. And you read to them. And then you give them the option, like, do you want to take this to bed with you? Or like, you know, if you're okay with that. If you're not okay with them taking a book to bed, then like after school or, you know, just at some point in the day, like, oh, did you want to read on? Like, I can't read to you right now, but if you like to read on, you can. And so at some point, and it may take you get through an entire book of reading it aloud to them. It may just be one chapter. It just kind of depends on the kid. But you start by reading aloud to them. And at some point, they're going to be like, can I take that and read ahead? Because they're going to want to know what comes next. And be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I can't read that to you right now, but if you like you can take it and read it. And they would like, and they will. So they'll take it, they'll read it, and then they'll start just reading it on their own. And if you are dying to know what happens, then you're gonna have to read it on your own also. So, but that's your goal. And you might have to do that with like every new series. You might have to start reading it to them, especially in those like younger years. And then as they're like used to the language, the vocabulary usage, the author's writing style, who the characters are, then they'll feel more comfortable reading on their own. And as they get older and as they get more used to reading chapter books, then they'll start a new book entirely on their own and won't need you. But that's the way to start. That's the way to go. Another really great one is Mercy Watson. So these are just so much fun. And especially if you have a child who just loves to laugh, you know, some kids are just more silly than others, and these are just silly. They're just silly books and just will get you giggling. And then they're like color And so that's always interesting. And you can just see like how much, there's a lot of white space there with a lot of pictures, a lot of color. And there's a lot of these books too. So this is a great, especially for those who love to laugh. Really good. This was McKenna, she's my third child. This was like one of her very favorites. And I mean, everyone enjoyed it, but this was like, you know, but this would be like McKenna's book if I was labeling a book, like giving it a child. Okay. This would be like this is a little more advanced. Oh, I have the dog next to me. Book just fell on her head. So the Nancy Clancy books, so interesting. And the character here is Fancy Nancy. So if your child loved the Fancy Nancy picture books, this is like great for the child who's like moving out of picture books, but just loves that Fancy Nancy. So it's a familiar character. I wouldn't do this as like your very first chapter book, just because you can see it's thicker. So like if we compare this to the Magic Tree House, you see how it's thicker. It also has like fewer pictures. So it has fewer pictures throughout the book. I mean, there are, but there's definitely like lots of pages without pictures. So it's just a little longer and thicker. And so like finishing a book there's like mental reward there. And this will be a little more complex reading level than like the Magic Tree House, but it won't take them long to get here. But I wouldn't make this number one unless they're already like, for sure, really good readers and they're absolutely obsessed with Fancy Nancy. But these are kind of like a Nancy Drew situation. And like in the book, like she loves Nancy Drew, so she's solving mysteries. And so that's always very interesting in your chapter books, because mysteries, you know, like drive the plot and make you like, what's next and what's going to happen. So there's a lot of these books. These are really fun books. So then you can also find just like, I hate to describe it as silly, but it's like, it is kind of like it's a cat mermaid. So like, you know, just these fun, silly little books that little kids love. You can find that's just like their interest. So this was like something Brinley loved. She's obsessed with cats, and like mermaids were definitely like a big thing when she was around this age. Like mermaids and unicorns were like huge at that point in time. So, you know, she had a few unicorn like series too that we turned to, but you know, you're just looking for something that will capture your child's interest. And so again, like let's compare it to our Magic Tree House. Magic Tree House is the best first one, but very similar, right? And you can see we've got pictures, we've got the words. So there's a lot of things like this. And I list out a whole bunch in my blog. Okay, so graphic novels. These were not really a big thing until like Brinley was in elementary school. So this is the Babysitter's Little Sister. So it's Babysitter's Club inspired, but like made for younger reading level. And they do have Babysitter's Club graphic novels too. So like a graphic novel, it's like a comic book. And the English major in me like cringes at the comic book. Absolutely. But in the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease, this is just one of the best books. If reading is a passion of yours, or you want your children to be great readers, like that's a great read. And it's a book written toward parents or toward educators, toward adults who have influence over children reading, that talks about how to get kids to love to read. Backs it up with like research and talks about the benefits and the results and all of that. So, but something he talks about is comic books. And like, if that's what the child wants to read, that's okay. Like your goal is to get the child to want to read. And like if you follow me for sleep advice, you know, I talk about how sleep begets sleep. Like we sometimes think erroneously that we should make a child tired so they'll sleep better, but like overtiredness leads to lack of sleep. Reading begets reading. So if this is what they're going to read at first, they will move on to a more traditional chapter book. And it's just like these, you know, like there's not a lot of words on each page, and there are a lot of pictures. There's a lot, you know, not a lot of words and a lot of pictures. And so I look at this, you know, number of words, kind of similar on a 2-page span. But so it's like, it's a gateway. It's a bridge between. And there was a period of time where those like graphic novels were Brinley's very favorite. And I just remember Jim Trelease and just like, okay. And she has moved beyond. I mean, she still loves graphic novels. And I think part of it, she's very visual. She's very artistic. And like, look how many pictures there are. You know, children who love to look at pictures, like, of course they're going to be drawn to that. Now, a great benefit of reading is creating your own pictures, right? Like, you use your imagination and create the world in your mind based on what you're reading. So there's great value in that. But she absolutely moved on from this to reading your traditional chapter books that are very long with 0 pictures. You know, she definitely did that. An amazing student when it comes to language arts. So it didn't damage her. We're fostering love of reading. So don't be like, you know, try to like, if you were like me and like a little bit of a snob about stuff like this, like just temper that and, you know, put that down and like allow that. So these are just a few examples of some really great Gateway chapter book series. And again, I have a whole bunch more listed on my blog. So make sure you check that out. Head to babywisemom.com. If you're on YouTube right now, I will link that in the description so you can scroll there. But also if you go to babywisemom.com, you can just search Gateway chapter books and it'll be the first result that pops up. Tons of great options. There's so many great books out there. If you have a favorite book series, I would love for you to drop it in the comments so that other parents can see and know what has been a favorite of your child's. And thanks for watching and have a great day. Just because who doesn't love a sleeping dog? This is the dog that's been by me. And she's been sleeping on this book, which is a Warriors graphic novel.